Clement Manyathela.
7:02. Let's walk the talk.
24 minutes before 11 o'clock. We are nearing the end of the series that we started a couple of weeks ago, where we look at things that science can't explain. So far, we have spoken about witchcraft. Today's the end, actually, eh? Yeah, I'm told today is actually the last episode of this series, where we look at things that science can't explain. So far, we spoke about witchcraft. We've discussed manifestation. We have discussed the soul and the spirit. Last week, we discussed ghosts in the supernatural world. So if you missed any of these conversations, you can simply go to Prime Media Plus, or just, Google things that science cannot explain and the Clement Manyathela Show. I think those should come up. You can listen to some of these conversations. Today, we're talking about intuition. How strong is your intuition? Have you ever made decisions without having all the facts, and then later on you realize that your instinct was right? Or maybe you felt uncomfortable about a certain person or a certain place, and you discovered something about them or that thing much later, and you realize why you felt the way that you did. And yes, intuition is obviously deeply personal. We experience it differently. But it's generally understood as a kind of knowledge or knowing of sorts that arises without conscious reasoning. When you feel something internally, a pull, a warning, a nudge, whichever way you experience it, before you can logically explain why. And often people describe it as, just knowing, or, oh, my gut told me this, or I had this hunch, and it normally borrows from the past experiences, body signals, emotional memory, even things we've observed subconsciously. So what's been your experience with intuition? Many of us seem to trust it. We seem to depend on it sometimes, even though science sometimes struggles to give us a full explanation. So do you trust your intuition? How has it protected you before? Right? And when has your intuition been right about something? Give us a call on 011-883-0702 to share your experience with us. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Keshnie Mathi is a specialist wellness counselor who's going to guide us through this conversation. Thank you for making time for us, Keshnie. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me on this very interesting series.
So when we talk about intuition, or this gut feeling, or this hunch, what exactly is it?
Well, like you mentioned, it's multifaceted. It refers to a feeling or a signal from your mind, body, or soul that might not necessarily be rooted in conscious logic. So what that means is something in your body or your mind moves and tells you something, is sending signals to you, but you're not quite sure why it's coming along or whether or not it's even real.
Okay, and what happens in the body, with your body and mind, when you have this gut feeling? Because some people know, will pause and say, I'm getting a feeling about this. For some people, it's not as immediate. But what generally, from what you've observed, what really happens? Is there something happening to the body, to the mind, while you experience this gut feeling?
So your instinctual pulse is as unique as your fingerprints.
Okay, yeah.
And you mentioned that earlier,
Yeah.
right? So you will notice, there's some common, I would like to say, signals, such as you feel quite queasy in the pits of your stomach, right? You might feel like you need to use the bathroom. It's one that's less spoken about. You might get goosebumps. You might have flashbacks. You might go hot and cold. We have hair standing up on our arms, for example, if we're close to someone or if we're in a specific area. And then we have the instinctual behaviors, such as if you pull up to a stop street that you've pulled up to, 1,000 times before, but today you feel the need to sort of reinforce locking your doors, right? So it can also be behavioral in nature. However, everyone experiences differently. So sometimes I've had clients say to me, my feet start to sweat. Or I feel that I suddenly feel almost like I can't breathe, short breathness. These are not common, but they do occur in people. And I think that the real mystery here is, do we read our bodies and trust our bodies, mind and soul well enough to actually lean into these feelings, to be able to recognize if they are valid or if they are based on an event that we have witnessed or heard about.
And why do some people dismiss this gut feeling, as maybe not real or not reliable, and then they'll of course explain why they had to go a particular way, even they did feel something, but they didn't know that was perhaps a feeling that needed to be, or a voice that needed to be listened to. From your experience, do you have people that often will come back and say, oh my goodness, I know I went the opposite way, but I was warned about that. I should have known better. I should have listened to my voice. I mean, I've had lots of my friends say that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it has a lot to do with personality and experience. So let's not paint an ideal picture. Sometimes our gut and our instincts can lead us astray when we're younger or when we're excitable. Okay, so we learn those lessons and we learn not to trust our instincts and gut and to second guess. We also, socialization, sometimes doing the right thing as per your instinct could make you a social outcast, to make people look at you strangely. So there's that aspect of it as well. There's also trauma. And I cannot emphasize this, enough, that when people have experienced trauma or childhood trauma, they do sometimes cut off their instincts and gut. And that is something that is synonymous with trauma survivors. But it can also be the opposite, and it becomes heightened. So socialization, overthinking, too much logic, fear of the unknown, these are all reasons why we second guess our instincts.
Yeah. And what builds that instinctive feeling? Because they are different. We come from different cultures, from different spiritual traditions, and I often wonder how these factors influence our intuition.
It influences it greatly. The larger your faith, the more that you interpret what you hear and feel as coming from, and I want to say, the divine or your belief system. Okay. However, what I do want to also emphasize is that a lot of people do experience and label and quantify or describe this gut feeling as different things, right? So we also have to be conscious that it is not a one sort of brush stroke for all here, and that we need to define. So how do we harness it? Well, we sit by ourselves, and it's hard for people to sit by themselves. It's not normal. And we start to listen to what our body is saying to us. So how does my body feel when I'm near a person or an event, before I go to a meeting, before I make a decision? What are the common and repetitive things that happen to me to warn me against danger or to push me towards good things happening? How much of this is fear and learned, and how much of it is what I felt since I was a child, you know? As parents, I'm a parent of two, and sometimes I'm guilty of minimizing my child's instincts. So they say, Mom, it's a great thing, I want to do it. And I say, but have you thought about A, B, C, or D? So I and we've all experienced that. So it's getting to know yourself again on a primal rewilding experience to say, okay, I would not hurt myself. So let me sit down and figure out what are those little nudges, like you mentioned earlier, that are telling me that this is the right thing to do. And then I will use everything that I know to be able to measure out the risk of doing that thing for the long term.
Yes. Do you have a strong intuition? 011-883-0702. Has it guided you before? Have you gotten it right and you thought, oh my goodness, this is actually quite scary? Or are you a type of person that doesn't really trust your gut feeling? Because you maybe believe that you've been led astray in the times that you've listened to that voice, if you describe it like that. The WhatsApp line is 0727021702. Let's listen to some of your experiences.
Good morning, Michael Owen Sons here, and I am responding to the conversation about intuition. I think what's interesting about intuition is that it points to an aspect of reality that we aren't fully aware of, that we aren't fully in control, but it's still something that tends to guide us, something that tends to protect us, something that tends to reveal to us information about the people around us, about certain situations, about what could protect us. I do think it is something phenomenal. I think from a Christian perspective, one could lead it to the Holy Spirit just being a godly part of God that is inside of us, guiding us to what is right. So I think there's so many different manifestations of it, and I think it is interesting that we don't know everything about reality that we think we know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I've got some people as well who also call it the Holy Spirit, Keshnie. There are people who are saying, for me, it's the Holy Spirit. So, can you does that make sense then to relate it with that?
You can relate it to whatever brings you peace and security. And this is important. We've had some clients say it's the Holy Spirit, others say it's God, others say it's past loved ones. We've had just numerous number of input here in terms of how people see it. And the most important thing is people do adopt the philosophies that they have lived, or you can create one around what you think it is. Some people just say, it's myself, my inner child, talking to myself. And that's okay too.
But the inner child can also be responding to, it could be trauma. So how do we then distinguish between intuition that is helpful from the gut reactions that might be as a result of, fear or bias or, our trauma responses?
It's such a good question. So I normally ask a question to my clients and I say, how has this served you? Or how has this worked for you in the past? And that is a good key indicator of what you are feeling. A lot of people, and I will say the majority of our population, have experienced trauma, but not all of them walk with trauma. Some will walk alongside it, right? And so when you're making these decisions based on your gut instinct, it is to trust self, but it's also to go in and lean in deeper into, am I avoiding the situation because of what has happened to me before, or am I avoiding the situation because I just know and feel that it is not the right thing for me? And there is no scientific logic with regard to, a blanket approach to this. We are only just starting to understand the metaphysical side of wellness and of care, really, and how we deal with situations.
Yes. Let's go to some calls now. Lindani, you calling from Krugersdorp. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. Thank you for taking my call. Clement, I just wanted to share my experience as well on intuition. This year, I gave someone a lift. I was driving on N3 coming from KZN. Gave someone a lift, and on the last toll gate here at the Hope Plaza, and then I started having this intense feeling over my body that I couldn't explain at the time as to what was it all about. Little did I know, when we got to Heidelberg, there were people waiting for me, this guy that he was working with, and I got hijacked. So later on, I realized that intense feeling that I actually had, it was kind of a warning to tell me that something is about to go down. But then, unfortunately, I couldn't really explain it to say that I'm about to go through this ordeal. But yeah, intuition is such a huge thing, and it's a shame that when it happens, sometimes you can't really explain it as to avoid what is about to happen.
So what do you do now, Lindani? Are you more aware? So when you have feelings like that, do you sit and consider that this may be a warning, or just alerting me to something else? Has it made you more aware and awake to that intuition?
Yeah, definitely, because now every time I have some sort of anxiety or whatever, I just focus on what I'm about to do. If there is a way of doing it differently or taking a different route, then I actually do that because now I know that intuition is actually, it is real.
Yeah, Lindani, thank you for sharing that with us. Let's go to some WhatsApps coming through on 072-702-1702.
Morning, Clement and your guest. Growing up as a little boy, I used to hear elders and grown-ups in my household talk about this thing. They couldn't explain it either, but you would often hear them saying, something told me I shouldn't have gone that way, or I shouldn't have done that, or something told me I was forgetting something, or something like that. And then luckily I went to art school, and there we were encouraged to harness this feeling. Our lecturer, one of my lecturers, called it a gut feeling. Then as an art student, you are encouraged to listen to it and trust it. And certainly life experiences as well, and reading on the subject has led me at this stage of my life to heed my gut feeling, or my sixth sense, or whatever you want to call it. I definitely heed it and I follow it.
Good morning, Clement and your guest. My late mom had a thing about when her eyes twitched, she would say, the left eye means that, the right eye means that. I brushed it off. However, many years later, she was in hospital, I was at home, and I looked at the clock, the exact moment my left eye twitched, and she had passed away. She often said the left eye meant bad news. She had passed away. I was told she passed away at 2 p.m. And that's when I started believing that it meant something. Thanks, Dima.
Sure. That's fascinating, hey? So, Keshnie, a few people want to know, how do we strengthen then our intuition? Are there practices? What do you suggest? Meditation, journaling, body movement? I don't know. Rituals around mindfulness? What is your advice to those listening to us now, and they are quite interested in wanting to harness and strengthen their intuitive awareness?
I love that. And, you've answered quite a lot of it. But if I could just add to some of that. So, yes, prayer, meditation, getting in touch with nature. How many of us actually just go out and just sit in the silence, of nature, feet on grass, sitting in an open space that really allows you to hear and feel things that you might not necessarily feel. Embracing the pause is a good one. So the way that you do this in everyday life is just before you respond or react, count 3 seconds. Allow it to process through your mind, body, and soul, so you can allow your body and your mind and your soul to indicate anything it needs to indicate before you actually react, behave, or emote. Also, simple practices like movement. Even though many of us think we do move, we don't move intensely. So, for example, walking in a straight line around your office park or in your garden, 7.5 minutes one way, 7.5 minutes the other, in complete silence. No music, no podcast, nothing. Just being able to move your body will allow those signals to actually come through much quicker, because all of your body is now aligned to your mind and your heart and your gut as well. Also remember, we call it a gut feeling for a reason, and we're learning now that our gut does do a lot of work in terms of emotional regulation. So what you eat, be aware of that you're feeding your intuition and your gut, impulses as well. So these are all things that we can do. For moms and for people that have had big, happy events, remember your intuition is going to be higher after those amazing moments, like a promotion or a wedding or the birth of a child. So, listen carefully and learn that others are worth listening to, and you are worth listening to as well. So practice the art of listening to self continuously throughout the day.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up this with this WhatsApp voice note.
Good morning, Clement and team. It's Max here from Honeydew. Just commenting on the topic. It happened to me when I was driving from home. with my son. I was about 10 kilometers away to the garage when he started asking to pee. Then I said, son, we'll be at the garage not in no time. Then 5 kilometers to go. He's now asking for water. I'm like, boy, you wanted to pee, now you're asking for water. Then little did I know that he was asking me to stop. In a few minutes, I was involved in an accident. So nowadays, I listen to that and I respect to my insinuating.
Yeah. Listen. Yeah. Keshnie Mathi, thank you so much for chatting to us and for helping us understand more about intuition and how we can harness it. Specialist wellness and counselor. That's Keshnie Mathi. It's 3 minutes now before 11.